All right, let's dive right in. We're going on a visual journey through the incredible process of human reproduction. Think of this as your exam-ready guide, mapping everything out so you can clearly see how each step logically leads to the next, from the first spark of life to the baby's first breath.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the absolute foundation, the menstrual cycle. From there, we'll zoom in on the big moment, fertilization and implantation. Then we'll explore the amazing support system the body builds, check out the major developmental milestones, and finally, we'll decode the truly ingenious system of fetal circulation.
Okay, first things first. Before you can even think about pregnancy, you have to understand the rhythm that makes it all possible, the menstrual cycle. And you know, it's so much more than just a monthly event. It's this incredible, intricate dance of hormones all working together to prepare the body for new life. What I love about this slide is how it shows you two stories happening at the exact same time. You've got what's happening in the ovaries and what's happening in the uterus. And the key is, they're constantly talking to each other. See, in the follicular phase, the ovary grows a follicle, which starts pumping out estrogen. That estrogen is the direct signal for the uterus to start its proliferative phase, rebuilding that lining. Then, boom, ovulation happens. The ovary forms the corpus luteum, which makes progesterone, telling the uterus, okay, time for the secretory phase. Get that lining super lush and ready for an embryo. It's a perfect, synchronized conversation.
So what's the why behind this whole cycle? It all comes down to this brilliant feedback loop, kind of like a chain of command. The hypothalamus is the top boss, releasing GnRH. That's the order to the next level down, the anterior pituitary to release its hormones, FSH and LH. FSH and LH travel down to the ovaries and tell them what to do, grow the follicle and ovulate. And then, and this is the genius part, the ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone, which not only prepare the uterus, but also send a message back up to the brain saying, okay, you can adjust the FSH and LH now. Understanding this self-regulating command center is absolutely key for your exams.
Okay, so the stage is perfectly set. The hormonal dance has done its job, the uterine lining is primed, and an ovum has been released. So what happens next? Well, now we get to the moment that kicks off the whole thing, fertilization and the journey that follows.
Location, location, location. This is such a critical piece of the puzzle. Fertilization doesn't happen in the uterus itself. It happens way out into the fallopian tube in a specific section called the ampulla. Now, why does that matter so much? Well, think about it. The brand new zygote needs some travel time, needs a few days to make its way to the uterus, and during that trip, it's dividing and developing. So by the time it arrives, it's a blastocyst, perfectly ready to implant.
So let's walk through this incredible journey. It starts with fertilization, creating that first single cell, the zygote. As it travels down the fallopian tube, it starts dividing. That's called cleavage, and becomes a blastocyst. About 6 to 10 days after ovulation, it finally reaches the uterus and burrows into that cozy, nutrient-rich wall. And here's the crucial move. As soon as it implants, it starts releasing a hormone called HCG. That's the signal that tells the corpus luteum, hey, I made it. Don't stop making progesterone. And that HCG, well, that's exactly what a pregnancy test is looking for.
So you have to wonder, right? How does this tiny little cluster of cells, now successfully implanted, actually survive and grow into a fetus? Well, it can't do it alone. It needs a dedicated, state-of-the-art life support system. And that brings us to the incredible infrastructure the body builds to protect this new life.
So let's talk about that fetal environment. We're talking about 3 amazing structures: the placenta, the amniotic fluid, and the umbilical cord. This is a biological support system purpose-built for one single vital job: helping a baby grow.
First up, we've got the amniotic fluid. It's not just a bag of water. Nope. This stuff is like a high-tech personal bubble. It's a shock absorber. It keeps the temperature perfectly constant, and it allows the fetus to float and move around, which is super important for developing strong bones and muscles. What's also fascinating is that it contains fetal urine, so by looking at the fluid, we can actually get a good idea of how well the baby's kidneys are working.
Now, if the amniotic fluid is the protective bubble, the placenta is the absolute powerhouse of the whole operation. Seriously, think of it as the baby's lungs, kidneys, and endocrine system all rolled into one amazing organ. It delivers oxygen and nutrients, it gets rid of waste, and by about week 12, it completely takes over making the hormones needed for the pregnancy. And this right here is a huge exam tip. While it gives the baby antibodies for immunity, it's not a perfect barrier. Nutrients, medications, alcohol, and even viruses can cross it. That's a vital concept to remember.
Okay, so the life support system is built and it's running. Now we get to the really cool part. watching the blueprint for a human being come to life week by week. Let's look at this incredible developmental timeline.
This timeline hits the highlights you absolutely have to know. Think about this. As early as week 3, a tiny, tubular heart starts to beat. By week 8, just 2 months in, every single organ system is already there in some basic form. Isn't that wild? By week 12, you can hear that heartbeat with a Doppler. At week 16, you can tell the sex on an ultrasound. And for viability, week 28 is a big one, because the lungs are finally developed enough for gas exchange. By week 36, they're considered fully mature. The pace is just breathtaking.
All right, let's tackle a topic that can feel a little tricky, but honestly, it's one of the most fascinating parts of this whole story. Fetal circulation. This is the ingenious plumbing system that lets a fetus get everything it needs without ever using its lungs.
So take a look at this diagram. The whole key to getting this is to remember one thing. The fetus isn't using its lungs for oxygen. They're filled with fluid. And the liver isn't doing much filtering yet. So the body creates 3 brilliant shortcuts, or shunts, to bypass those organs and get the super oxygenated blood from the placenta straight to the most important places, like the brain and the heart.
Okay, shunt number 1, the ductus venosus. Think of this like a highway bypass for the liver. The blood coming from the placenta in the umbilical vein is packed with oxygen. Instead of sending it on a slow tour through the liver, this shunt connects it directly to the inferior vena cava, the main vein heading back to the heart. It's an express lane for oxygen. Now, once that oxygen-rich blood gets to the right atrium of the heart, it hits shunt number 2, the foramen ovale. This is basically a little trapdoor between the 2 top chambers of the heart. Since there's no point in sending a bunch of blood to the fluid-filled lungs, this opening lets most of it shoot directly from the right side over to the left side, completely bypassing the lungs and getting ready to be pumped out to the brain and body. And finally, we have shunt number 3, the ductus arteriosus. This is kind of like the backup plan. For the small amount of blood that does get pumped towards the lungs, this little vessel provides one more escape route. It connects the pulmonary artery directly to the aorta, again diverting blood away from the lungs and into the main circulation. It's just a brilliant piece of engineering.
So this table, this really brings it all home. It shows you the absolutely dramatic switch that happens, like in an instant, right at birth. The lungs go from being fluid-filled to air-filled. That pressure change slams the foramen ovale shut. Hormones kick in and cause the other 2 shunts, the ductus arteriosus and ductus venosus, to start closing down. The crucial takeaway is that this entire complex system is designed to completely transform, all triggered by one single event.
And that leads us to our final thought. The fetal circulatory system really is a masterpiece of temporary engineering, perfectly designed for life in the womb. But what single event triggers its complete, radical transformation at birth? The answer is the baby's very first breath. That single action sets off a cascade of pressure changes that closes the shunts, reroutes all the blood through the lungs, and forever changes the path of life. It's just incredible.